Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazell, and I am joined by Abram Buehner on Dev Dive, the premier developer show on the entire internet, of course. And I talk to the most interesting game developers about their games. And today we have Marcus Horn here, the creator of Toree Saturn, which is the game we're going to be talking about today. He's made a bunch of games, a bunch of Toree games, and this is kind of seemingly the Toree magnum opus. And we're here to dig into it and its story and what went into designing it. But Abram, you're here on other stuff all the time. I don't need to thank
Very
you.
true.
Don't want it to go to your head. But Marcus, thank you very much for joining us and talking to us about Toree Saturn.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because I remember when Abram showed me your games, I think 2021 or 2022, and we played a couple of them, and then there was just always this boiling in the background. Toree Saturn is coming, and now in 2025, we're finally here, and the game is out. It's your biggest project yet, and I'm excited to dive into why this game was a much bigger project for you than the other ones you've worked on.
In 2022, I was working on Super Kiwi 64, which I think also released in that year. Yeah, of course, December. Um, and it's some like this is like this very atmospheric, dark kind of game. And at some point, I just got like I don't know, like oversaturated on like mood and atmosphere and random skeletons everywhere. And I needed something colorful. And the Sonic anniversary was coming up, so I made a small Tory game that was just like literally like just like basically a Sonic the Hedgehog tribute kind of thing. It was a game called Tory Genesis, and people really liked it. People enjoyed it. Like the music was really cool. Because I got like super lucky with a new composer and whatnot. Like near the end of Super Kiwi's development, like I don't know, like 2 or 3 months before release or something like this, I figured, hey, maybe this should be like my next thing. Like just take this game because it had like 3 levels and just make it, like a normal Tori game, like with 8 or 9 levels. Like I mean, there's this group of YouTubers called the Chalk Eaters. They basically they make music about video games, and they managed to get like some actual names involved. Like for example, they made a song about like Valve, Half-Life, and Portal, and they got Gabe Newell involved and the voice of GLaDOS, and they also made a song for like Sonic's anniversary together with Johnny Gioeli, from Crash 40, who composed a lot of the themes for the Sonic games for years. Like right around that time when I decided to turn Tory Genesis into a bigger game, I figured it would be super cool to maybe have Johnny Gioeli involved. So I just like basically I contacted Johnny and he was like on board, and then I decided, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna take this small game and turn it into a slightly bigger game. I just make a completely new Tory game from scratch. Like I mean, it's not a bigger game in terms of quantity. In fact, a lot of people told me in terms of quantity, it's like even less than before. But it's definitely in terms of quality and the work that went into and the people that were involved. That's basically the main reason because I got Johnny Gioeli involved. I was like, okay, this needs to be good. This needs to be something quality wise way better than before.
I'm curious in this idea of better than before because I was super excited for Toree Saturn because I really love Toree 3D and Toree 2. From your point of view, was there like sort of a shortcoming in those games you're looking to address in Toree Saturn, or for you when you say better, is that just simply bigger in scale?
Like for one part, definitely in terms of quality, because I mean, Atari 3D I made in 4 months, so a lot of the levels are basically just like I need a platform and I need a texture for the platform, and that's basically it. Maybe I throw in like one piece of decoration or whatnot. Yeah, I wanted to improve that, so I started with the with with like the level, the city level, because I figured if I manage to make a city level that looks cool, then that's a good like benchmark to go from. But also like I also wanted to, well, not improve, not enhance, but like like widen the gameplay
Expand.
opportunity. Yeah, yes, thank you. Expand like the gameplay, the moment to moment gameplay. Because some people, were saying like it's cool how Tori is super simple, but it would be nice to have some way of on your own, like moving forward quicker. So that's where the whole ground dash thing came after like months of trying out things. Like at one point, it was literally just a drop dash from Sonic Mania, but because Tori double jumps and I didn't want to take that out, it just felt horrible. So it's not necessarily that there were like actual shortcomings. Like I don't think Tori 3D is like, oh, I should have made it so much better. These little areas that I feel like I can improve. Also the 3D model itself. I actually saw some fan art for Tori, which is like still surreal to me. But every every single fan art of Tori gave Tori so much more character and made it, just so much more I don't know, cute and like perfect. I also wanted to, improve on that, honestly. Like I don't hate the original model. I mean it's literally in Tori Saturn, but just like some way of giving Tori more expression and whatnot. So it's just like a lot of tiny things that just added up together, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Because the interesting thing that you mentioned is that a lot of your previous projects have been your games are usually similar in scope. They don't take much longer than an hour, or usually less to complete. They're what called bite-sized games. But also, for the most part, it seems from what I know, a lot of the development cycles of your previous games were also comparatively much quicker. You mentioned Tori 3D being made in 4 months, and within that time period, you're also doing Super Kiwi 64 and Tori 2 and Beanie, and like there's this iteration of games in a quick time span. And so, from an outsider's perspective, I'm introduced to you, and you're the guy that makes a game every 6 months, and then suddenly,
Used
Toree
to.
Saturn, exactly, Toree Saturn takes so much longer. I'm curious for you what you saw as the value. Was it the filling in the cracks and polishing the edges that warranted this game being taking a lot longer, or was that kind of deeper, longer development cycle something you'd been looking to dive into?
Oh, definitely not. Like I hate long development cycles. Um, no, it kind of, in a way, it started with Super Kiwi because I started Super Kiwi in 2018, actually, like when I was still studying. Like I just randomly started it on the side because it was a bit of an intense time, so to say, and I needed something to like, um, vent mentally and whatnot. So I started working on that game. I worked on it every now and then when I after Tori 2, I think decided that okay, now is actually the time to really turn it into like the next game. I kind of felt like all the work that already went into this game and also like the emotional meaning that the game had, it kind of I kind of wanted to respect that, so I put more effort into this game. So, I got a composer that really knows what he's doing, and like we had so many discussions about the world itself and how the music should sound, and there were so many ideas for world themes. Like the four that are actually in the game are just like the ones that stuck. The ones that kind of got picked out from all the ideas I had. After Kiwi took way longer than I hoped, but people reacted really positive towards it. Like I think actually it's my most reviewed game on Steam. I might be wrong, but I think it is. Um, I figured that I can do the same for Tori and just like you know give the game more time, more improvement and whatnot. And like I said, for Tori, it wasn't so much like any emotional involvement. It was just like I got Johnny G. Welly involved. I literally got you know like one thing from my bucket list in life. So it's like okay, I just put everything in this game. Um, but having said that, now that Tori is done, um, I am definitely going back to making smaller things. Like I actually already started because it's like it's just no, no, that's not for me.
No, that's very interesting, and I'm curious where that drive to make small games comes from. Let's take a look back at your history with game development and what sort of games maybe you played that were quick, that didn't take very long to complete, that might have inspired you to want to get into making short games. Is playing short games something you've always liked, and then did that inspire you to be getting into short games yourself?
Oh, no, no, not at all. I mean, nowadays, yes, like with having a day job and all that stuff, playing like some short indie game that I can finish in a night, or even better, like in an hour, and then just replay it over and over, is definitely like very high on my list. But now back in the day, I basically, I wouldn't say hated, but like every time you finish the game, it kind of felt good, but also kind of now what, So it definitely didn't come from that. Like the games I make, like the more action focused, more action driven games, it's just way harder and takes so much more work and content to make those games longer. Like for example, if Tori would have been, I don't know, an RPG where you like a JRPG where you have to first walk around the map, talk to several people, like click through all the text boxes, then have like, I don't know, at least five random encounters on the way to the next town. That's all like kind of filling the thing, right? But if you like very fast and you like just have to get from point A to point B, it's like I don't know, you work on a level for a month or something, and you try out the finished version, and it's like, oh, 1 minute 30. Okay, cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Basically, it's that. Another reason is like back in the day, I was like, I don't know, I was like super lazy when it came to working on my stuff. It's like I was the opposite of a perfectionist, right? It's just like everything was good enough, and I just continued. And I had to train myself to become a perfectionist in a way. I don't think I actually am, but like in a way, to force myself to maybe make something that is first of all not an insult to the eye, but also not an insult to like game feel and whatnot. And nowadays, it's like I just rework things over and over and over, and I just like cut out things that I feel like are not necessary and whatnot. Like Toree Saturn was actually planned way longer, and then I picked out pieces and whatnot. So that's also a reason why they just become like this short, compact things.
I feel like as I'm playing, I can really feel your careful hand in curating these stages because I'm a big fan of replaying games, and something that I've really enjoyed with Tori Saturn in particular has been running these stages repeatedly for better times. And I'm curious, sort of. Where this intersects with your personal taste as well, because something that I love about Sonic, as also a big Sonic fan, is that a game like Sonic Mania is a game that I'm playing once every year or so, because it's just so easy to get back into that feel and get back into that world and try to do a little bit better than last time. For you and your experience as a player and a developer, is this idea of the replay and the mastery important to you?
I mean, yes, having a game that is fun to replay is like really big for me. But when when I think of replay, it's more like, oh, I just play literally what I just played again in the same vein, doing the same jumps and whatnot. The whole ranking thing actually was a friend of mine. The person who ports my games to Switch. I literally told him like, okay, the game is like super short. It's like 45 minutes. It's shorter than my last game. I don't know what to do, to make this somehow more worthwhile. And he was like, why don't you like put rankings in there? I mean, you obviously like I had the time thingy and the score thing that was already in there, but I didn't do anything with it other than just have like the star collecting and just like telling you how quick you were. But he was like, why don't you give the player a rank for how quick they were? I was like, I mean, I guess that's easy. I can try that, but I doubt that it's gonna be that big. And it's literally what people like the most.
Yeah. Well, so do you like playing games like that? Like, do you chase times or high scores or anything?
Not really. I kind of do by default. For example, Shadow Generations, which I played some of the levels over and over and over again because I love that game, right? And I just got better and better and better, and eventually got the S ranks and whatnot. And it's like it does kind of feel rewarding, but it's not like I'm out to get all the S ranks, right? I wouldn't replay a level I really don't like that much just to get like S rank, unless there's something cool hidden behind getting all of them, which I don't think there is in Shadow, but you know.
And with Toree Saturn, uh, it is as you said, a project that you had a little bit more care, you had the time to put care into it. Like you had a time to really polish things up and try different things. You know, there's a racing level, there's cutscenes, and I'm going to talk about these things. But what sort of new skills do you think you had to learn when making Toree Saturn that the other Toree games and Beanie and these other projects, they're different. They're what things weren't you not prepared for going into Toree Saturn that you had to then learn over the last few years?
I mean, one thing is definitely cutscenes. Like usually like I make a game that has cutscenes. I hate them, and I promise myself I will never do cutscenes again. The next game does not have cutscenes. The game afterwards, I'm like, hey, story would be cool, so cutscenes are back. And then I remember, oh, I don't like making cutscenes. So that is
That's really
like a
funny.
vicious cycle. Um, Other than
That's
that,
so funny.
like the really big thing I had to learn for Toree Saturn was how to make a racing track, like one that like both visually, but also like how to make it fun to traverse, but also not like too complicated and whatnot. And that took, I think, the whole development till almost the very end, because it was very clear early on that like after the whole after I talked to Johnny and then talked to my composer who was like you know also bucket list for him. Um, we were like, yeah, but we shouldn't. This shouldn't be like in a Sonic game, like oh, the final big boss thing, like you fight as Super Sonic against some big evil creature. It should be something else. And we quickly came up with like this Sega arcade racing thing. We were kind of like very clear that we go in this direction of having a race, like a literal racing game as the final level, and I really enjoyed that. I really liked that idea. And then like a week or two later, I tried out like my first little piece of road, and I was like, oh dang it, I have no idea how to do this.
Interesting, yeah. Well, so what was it about designing a racetrack that was specifically very difficult? I mean, you've got the placing of platforms down. You've done that in a bunch of games now, but is it about the way that you do the curves, or what's so much more difficult about a racing track?
The big thing was basically the road, because the road is basically one very long connected platform if you put it in a 3D platformer, right? And in Tori, I use like the bottomless pit thing, right? That was a real big problem because at the beginning I did have like some small boosters for Tori, but like the homing attack wasn't there yet. The star boosters that like shoot you forward weren't there, so it was just like Tori on a big piece of road that also looked bad because I didn't know how to do it. And then when I finally figured out how to like, put together the road with like tiny bits and pieces, then I realized, oh, the curve is too tight, right? And it was a real mess, right? Just turning this racing track into a fun platforming challenge. It literally took until I came up with these boost star thingies that it started to be fun because it was horrible. It was really super. It was so boring that at some point I actually decided to just put Tori in a car and it's just going to be a racing game, and I don't care. But luckily I didn't.
It's a really interesting point, this sort of like logistical challenge to figuring out the track, because I think that the other levels with how the ranking works, how I'm monitoring my time, those almost become racing stages for me. I'm almost literally finding like a racing line, and I'm running against my own ghost to see, okay, if I'm even just like a couple degrees to the right here, I can probably shave off 100th of a second, and it has sort of the same feeling for me as playing Mario Kart or insert any racer you like, and figuring out, okay, how can I get that time trial down just by another second. So I'm really interested in this idea that while the platformer and the racer are so intrinsically linked in this game and somewhat on a player's perspective, from your perspective as developer, they're actually quite different challenges. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, but like I also the goal is also to have both styles kind of like reach the same point, right? Where the player doesn't really think about, oh, this level does not have any bottomless pits, or it's literally like a loop you run 3 times or whatnot. But it just feels like the other levels as well for the player when they are playing. So yes, absolutely, but also like adding that the goal is to still reach like the same platforming level. I don't know the word.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the player experience, and I think that the player experience of this game is so fundamentally different than the other Tory games. And it's interesting because you were mentioning what I clocked pretty quickly is like real like boost era Sonic aspects that you've added into the game with ostensibly the homing maneuver and these moments when I'm sort of when control is taken away from me and I'm in these set pieces, whether that be a massive set piece in like on the cruiser in that one stage, or that's even just a smaller couple seconds long string of well hit homing shots that I'm doing to get between stars. I felt like this game gained such a different flavor over the past Tory games by leaning even more heavily into, as you were saying earlier in our conversation, this really grounded Sonic inspiration. I'm both curious personally what your favorite Boost era Sonic game is, but more usefully for our audience, I'm curious how you kind of went about identifying how to pull these aspects in while finding the right balance between player freedom and more spectacular but kind of hands-off automated sections.
Okay, then I first have to ask, like, what specific is the boost area? Because like, does it start with Sonic Unleashed and go all the way to now?
I would say so, yeah.
Ooh, that's difficult. It's either Sonic Frontiers or Shadow Generations. I think they're like very, very close to each other. I'm just living my best Sonic life right now. Like the last two more or less main Sonic title were like just like really good for me.
Yeah, I'm really interested in sort of how a lot of those, what to me registered as very modern Sonic-like aspects in the sort of homing move and in the stars you've introduced, have sort of given the game a unique feel and kind of how you went about balancing the free player expression with these more sort of on rail sections that give a sense of spectacle and scale.
I don't really thought about those things. Um, I mean, I knew I was taking some agency away from the player, but the way I made them, like for example, the boosters, you can still kind of maneuver a bit, and you can, hold the jump button press to like, fly further or whatnot. And also, it's like just quick, short, little boosts. I didn't really think of them as oh, I'm taking away the player's agency when I like chain them together, which I do now that you mention it, but I just didn't think of it. And same goes for the like these platforms where you kind of grind on more or less, where you still can move left to right and have like some. It's basically just someone else holding the run button for you and giving you a little boost basically. So I didn't really think of it that way, and I basically just put those things together in a way that I felt feels good to play. I guess that's literally the answer. I just threw it together, and when it felt good to me, then I just kept it.
One question I have for you is what your touchstone is with Sega Saturn. Did you have a Saturn? Are you like a Saturn fan for life, or what's your history with that? And
There's basically almost zero history between me and the Sega Saturn. And the thing is, the game is not called Toree Saturn because of the Sega Saturn. It's I mean, okay, first of all, I need to like, of course, there were like some um history between the Sega Saturn and me. Like, for example, Sega Saturn being the first console with like 3D Sonic, like Sonic R, and obviously Nights into Dreams, which were both like titles that kind of felt like this mysterious and otherworldly to me while growing up because yeah, I did not have a Sega Saturn. Nobody I knew had one, and when I found out about it, it was like long discontinued, right? It was like, I don't know, during the GameCube era. It just felt like this really interesting kind of ancient mystery to me almost. So that is definitely one reason why I'm like this interested in specific games like Knights and Sonic R. And I mean there's like several Knights references in Tori, right? I literally made a Knights inspired minigame in this one. But the reason why the game is called Toree Saturn is like when I started working on it, I was actually going for Dreamcast look. And then I realized I'm not good enough to the Dreamcast look, and it kind of became this in between, like like not really PlayStation One anymore, but also not Dreamcast or whatever next. Um, and then I was thinking about a name for so long, and when KB was showing me the composer that worked together with Johnny Gioeli, showed me like the first versions of the song, still without Johnny in it. He just called the song "Rings of Saturn" for I don't know why. It's just like it's just a name. And I thought to myself, you know what? The main reason this game exists is because of that song. So I might as well just put that Saturn part behind the Tori and just basically call it Tori Saturn. I could maybe even make some jokes about the Sega Saturn, but everyone thought, oh, okay, this is inspired by Sega Saturn, which is fine. I mean, it makes total sense, and it's not like it doesn't look like it. So
Interesting. What about the cutscenes and the narrative in the game? I was surprised after playing Tori 2, and then I the next day I played Tori Saturn. How much more narrative beats and these cutscenes and like the progression from the characters of the last game and all this stuff. It's not a massive narrative, but for your context, it kind of is. And so I'm curious what your goals were with implementing a more foregrounded narrative in Tori Saturn.
I really I'm a big fan of anime, right? And I just love how a lot of animes do their narrative, like how they tell a story because it's all made almost always like super over dramatic and very intense and just the whole presentation of how most popular animes tell their stories. And I just love that. I want to do the same, but when you make a game, especially like I said, like an action game, you can't tell that much story through gameplay, so you kind of have to do it through cutscenes. And I hate cutscenes, so it's like it's this this constant fight. So after the free update I did for Super Kiwi, where I used cutscenes and where I had voice actors and where I was even thinking about like this deep story that connects stuff and whatnot, people were actually like either they didn't care or they thought it was kind of bad or like a few people were really into this and were like, oh, okay, this connects stuff. But yeah, basically I just want to tell like this really cool interesting big story, but because I only make like small games with no with no story, I just connected them all. And that's like the main reason because the original idea for Tori's story, there was more, right? Like Hawkeye wasn't the only villain and stuff, and I wanted to tell like this really interesting story and all that, but I quickly realized that's not gonna, unless I want to spend like 6 years on this, that's not gonna fly. So I cut all of this basically in half, like not just story, but also like level ideas and whatnot. But also kind of had to somehow set up what was coming next, right? So that's just how it all went together. Also, yet again, I ditched voice acting in Tori because of what people said about the last thing didn't really work out. My writing is bad, whatnot. So I figured I just tell the story through cutscenes where they don't talk, where the characters just interact in other ways. So that's just kind of how it all clicked together, really.
I think what's interesting to me about that is that there's this vision that sort of existed in the process of making the game, and then there's sort of what was realized being just a portion of it. And I'm curious for you if that sort of feels like a missed opportunity, or if you feel like you actually found the best version of this narrative in this game in the process of kind of paring back your scope to release.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this was definitely the way better option. Like I had some ideas that I was actually thinking about still putting in here, but it just didn't make sense. For example, like the bad guy in the first tutorials, Glitchy, who is now friends with Tori. He was actually playing or like gonna play a bigger role, but I felt it made no sense to come out of nowhere and be like, oh, they are friends, and also he's like super important now. So I had basically in this game just kind of wanted to establish first that oh, they are actually friends now. Like Tori comes to Glitch and be like, hey, this is this mean guy, could you help me and whatnot? And Glitch is just like, sure, blow up the ships. And then just also kind of end the story there, right? Because like it feels like in between games you can kind of get away with a lot of world building. For example, if there would be a next Tori game and Tori and Glitchy would be friends at the very beginning, people would be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course, they have been friends for forever at this point, even though it was just like one game, right?" So, yeah, definitely the better choice for sure.
Another element of this game taking longer to make and being a little bit more polished and thought through is that it also is a game that compared to your other projects costs a lot more compared to your other projects. Your other games cost between for US dollars $1 and $3 at the max, mostly $1 or $2, and this is $5. Now, totally fine price for the game, worth the value. I'm not complaining at all. But I'm curious how the fan base that you've built up around your games being bite-sized and very, very cheap, how the reaction has been to releasing a game that not only takes longer to make compared to other projects, but then costs comparatively more. I mean, I can't imagine people are too upset about $5, but like, what's that been like with your community reacting to how different this game is in terms of development time and price?
I mean, the people that are like closer to the games, like very close, like people on my Discord server and people who have been following me on Twitter and whatnot for years and whatnot, they actually reacted really hyped about it, weirdly. Like for once that the game takes longer and the more they see, the more it's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be really interesting. So it's not gonna be like the same just running through levels to get ice cream again. It's gonna be a bit more and more interesting set pieces and whatnot. And the thing about the price was, like I mentioned earlier, there are like more people involved this time. I think I have 4 or 5 composers involved, which is like
Wow.
crazy. I don't even know how that happened. It just did. But that also means, like there was a bigger budget, so the game had to be more at this point.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
at first, I wanted to sell it for $3 again, like I did with Super Kiwi, because that worked. And then people around me kind of tricked me, and it took forever for me to realize. People were like, no, you should definitely do this $15. It's like it's a $15 game. And I'm like, are you insane? No, just think about it. You have Johnny, you have this guy, you have that, you put like 2.5 years work into this, blah blah blah. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't, this it's impossible. I can't do it $15. I'm sorry. I mean, I can do five. I can do five. And they were like, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. So they tricked me. They wanted
Ah,
me to turn it to five.
yeah.
They just tricked me.
They did like haggling with you, but they haggled it up.
Yeah, yeah. They were going for the five, but they tricked me with a way higher number. That was very
That's
sneaky.
really funny.
Now, in terms of the wider audience, like people who follow me on Steam, for example, or just like I guess check out whatever I release from time to time, they took it very badly. It's like the game is not selling at all. It's actually a big flop. Um, so there's definitely, I mean, there are probably many reasons for this, and I can think of a few. So for sure, saying if it might have been the price or not. It's still too early to say, but yeah, this might have been for the like not for the community, but for the overall people who play my stuff, might have been too much.
It's really I mean firstly it's a bummer to hear that it's underperforming because I have really enjoyed it, and for the record I would have paid $15 for it, but obviously but obviously the broader indie market is not full of people like myself and Tucker, and I think it's an interesting time to be having this conversation because Tucker actually, at the time of recording, just made a great video about sort of the reaction from various developers to Hollow Knight Silksong. And what I think it sort of has had me thinking about in terms of all the people delaying the game or responding to it one way or another. So it just has had me thinking about kind of the volatility of the indie space and sort of the challenges of launching a game in this year. And so obviously you've had this, this long career releasing these small titles. Now you're sort of at this moment where I think that these broader issues of discoverability and of people's time and getting attention and everything. And I'm sort of curious if it feels different now releasing this game than maybe a couple years ago when you were releasing an older title, and if you think that there's sort of this wider set of factors that impacted Toree Saturn's success beyond anything intrinsic to the game, because I think everything in the game is great.
It's a bit hard to compare because you know it's the first game that took this long, and it's the first game that is for $5. So I don't really have anything directly to compare to. So this would probably be a better question for when I release another $1 thing. But in terms of like general outside influence and whatnot, it definitely got way harder. For example, when I released Toree 3D, I got super lucky because you know, Balan Wonder World came out, and there was this Nintendo Live video who compared the two videos, the two games.
I assume, by the way, they compared it favorably to Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah, definitely.
Good, good.
For the record, I did play some Balan Wonderworld back in the day, and I think I also own it. It was like in a super sale on Amazon at some point. But and I don't think it's that bad. Like I get what people say, but it's like I mean, I don't know. It's still better than Bubsy 3D, which I also think is not that bad, but never mind. But yeah, there are like so many 3D indie platformers nowadays. Really, it's actually kind of interesting. It almost feels like late early 2000s where there were like way too many 3D platformers and people were like, okay, this is too much. It almost feels like this, but for small indie 3D platformers now. So that's definitely also a factor. But I mean, for Toree Saturn itself, there were like also so many other factors that are very specific to this game. For example, having a Nintendo Indie Direct literally the day before the game comes out, and then just a UFO 50 dropping for Switch, which like ah, and also I actually I worked together with one with like Alex from Nintendo Live. He was doing some testing and also came up with a cool idea to turn. He found a bug and we turned it into a feature. So you know they couldn't review the game because it would have been way too biased, of course. So and not having a review from like literally the biggest site was also kind of you know could have been better, but I would definitely say that besides all of this, it definitely got way harder nowadays. So in a way, I'm like super lucky that I still have some people from that kind of stuck around from Toree 3D to now. So it's not like I just scream into a void. I just like scream to a handful of people and they scream into the void, basically.
Sure.
It's interesting that you mentioned Bubsy 3D actually, because it had me thinking of something that Tucker and I had been speaking about earlier today, and it's Bubsy 4D, and I'm quite excited about this game. I think that Fabraz, who's making it, is exceptionally talented, and I'm really excited for what that game is going to be. And I was seeing some discussion online about the idea that a game like Bubsy 4D or many of the other sort of contemporaries to your game are involved in this sort of like highly expressive movement that oftentimes kind of lets you avoid a lot of a level, and you sort of are able to chain together these tools to kind of trivialize the landscape and sort of express your mastery over those mechanics. And I had sent Tucker a video of one of my S ranks in Toree Saturn where I was effectively doing that. He messaged me back something to the effect of like, "Oh shit, you're touching the level like half of the time." I think it's an interesting point because I kind of feel like in this sort of modern 3D platformer revival era, as you were mentioning, I feel like a lot of games are kind of made in the image or the feeling of Mario Odyssey and the highly expressive movement that games like it and the games it's inspired by and inspired kind of put forth. So I'm curious, sort of, as a designer and a player, what you make of this very modern feeling type of 3D platformer that gives you these incredibly powerful tools.
I absolutely love that. For example, when I like get some random indie game that might not be super polished or whatnot, right? And the game is somewhat fun, but like also kind of challenging. And then I find like some exploit or some bug or some design decision the developer didn't think of, and I can kind of exploit that and avoid like half of a level or whatnot. I love that. Like I kind of call that like not playing the game, but also playing with the game, kind of like where the game itself becomes sort of a toy, basically. Like you said, you're only touching half the level, or you avoid like complete sections of a level, or you just like find new ways of basically avoiding playing the level or the game the way it was intended to. I don't know. I think that is actually really cool. I don't actively do it for the most part because when I do, people think I'm just a bad designer. Like I did that in Super Kiwi, where you have like the like this move that you can pick into walls and just like jump over everything, and you can avoid a lot of things that way. And I really like that idea, but people were like, you know, should have been tighter designed. But yeah, I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that allows for that sort of expressive design is the drop dash move that you were talking about earlier. That is also something that is it's the seems to be the core of the design of the game in terms of flow, but it's also something that when the game came out was not particularly tutorialized. It wasn't really taught to the player, and both Abram and I played through significant chunks of the game without realizing that it was there. And I'll let Abram share his story of it.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I have to tell you, I got the game release day and I'm sitting down to play it, and I'm like, I think this is my least favorite of the three because I feel like all I'm doing is sort of locking onto these stars, and I feel like I'm losing a little bit of the expression. And Tucker said, "Well, what about the drop dash?" I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, and so I beat the whole game without it. And I'm like, I don't know about
Yeah,
this. But then playing it with that move, it is by
yeah.
far my favorite of the Torah games. And I think it is truly excellent. But I had totally missed that piece of it on my first playthrough.
Yeah, it was it was really funny to hear him talk about that and then have me mention this and said just try a couple levels with the drop dash, because once you realize that that's a core part of the game's flow, it really makes the level design and pacing make a lot more sense. And so let's talk about including that. You lightly mentioned that earlier, but then coming to realize that this very important part of the game wasn't being really understood by the players. I think that must have been kind of annoying for you, to be honest.
At first, it was like super shocking because we just had like a playtest, like the final beta playtest that was going on for I think almost 4 months, right? And nobody said anything. Nobody was like, "Hey, this drop dash thing? I didn't figure it out at first. Maybe you just put something in there." And of course, on release day, people are like, "Oh, this is, I mean, this is kind of cool, but it's just like you could do more in the other games." Like, what? Okay, I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but okay, I accept it. And then I even like read like this review where the reviewer was like, "Oh, this is I don't know, it's kind of not fun. You just like jump from star to star and just get shot over there and whatnot. Like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah.
And then these comments start to pop up. Oh, I didn't know you can do that. I'm like, oh no, shit. And like I never question it. Like there are of course like these signs in the game that tell you like, oh, press this, press that, but nobody reads them because you're way too fast. And I knew that, but I just thought like this is my, I don't know, fifth game or something that follows the same kind of inputs. And I just thought because I took away the like the run button, you don't have to hold this to run anymore. I just figured people would maybe be curious about that button and just like do it naturally and figure it out that way. And I guess some people did during the playtest, but obviously not everyone. And it makes total sense. It's like, and this is totally on me. I didn't think of it. My last minute solution for the PC version was, of course, to just put like this really big text in front of that one level. And it helped somewhat. And we're still like the Switch version recently got a patch. The PC version didn't yet because I was like this week I'm not at home, not at my workstation. That's why I cannot work on it, but it will. And there are like all kinds of different little hints and whatnot. So you know, future players will know it immediately. But yeah, that was really scary because yeah, like you said, if you take that away, the game is just really boring. It's just like it's like before, but you get kind of shot over.
I found the message where I told Abram, I said, play a few levels again while using that liberally. That makes the game much more fun. And then, I like an hour later or whatever, he sent me a message like, okay, now, yeah, I get it now. It makes way more sense. I was just, and it was funny to see that happening as I was also watching you on social media make these responses to people and share your quick fix for saying like this is
Yeah.
something I'm thinking about. It was an interesting moment for me to be clued into an element of game design and watch it sort of happen in real time.
Like there's this one level, I think it's the second one. Yeah, I think it's where you play as hockey and you don't play as Toree, right? And when I came up with it, it was early January 2024, and the whole month I was sick at home because I don't know, I got like the super cold or whatever. And out of nowhere, I suddenly started to like really get into the mood for like Shadow the Hedgehog or the underworld movies like early 2000s Y2K edge. And I was like, what if I try out to have hockey playable and like have this Y2K edge to it, right? And I did, and there was like so much. I actually came up with like unique gameplay mechanics, and I was actually thinking about having this game be just total Sonic Adventure 2, like two playable characters. And then at the end of January, when I just started really getting into it, they announced Shadow Generations. I was like, dang it. So that's how it turned into just one level and without any extra gameplay because, I felt like, okay, they kind of, pulled the rug underneath me. So that was kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Well, that's interesting because ultimately the game ended up coming out almost a year after Sonic X Shadow Generations, and so I
Yeah.
don't I don't really think that people would have like thought it was a ripoff or something like that. Also, because I think it's very clear that you're a Sonic fan. You're not hiding that. And so I know
Yeah.
people were like, wait, what? This guy's a fan of Sonic Generations? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like that was also my thought for this game. It's like there's no point in hiding it anymore. It's fine. Some people will complain, but most will get it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I think you found an audience that does really enjoy what you're doing. And it's interesting to hear the ways in which Toree Saturn has been really a learning experience for you, collaborating with more people, doing something over a longer period of time, realizing what would work and what doesn't, what kind of scope you like to work with. I think that this game and the challenges that you faced while making more cutscenes and making racing levels and doing all and adding the drop dash, I think you're a much better game designer probably now than you were before you started making it, and your future games will probably be better because of it.
I'm not sure about that part, but I mean, Yeah, by
I'm trying
default,
to
I think
compliment
I'm.
you.
Yeah, I'm not good with compliments, but thank you. No, but yeah, I do agree that I'm probably like after this 2.5 years, I'm probably slightly better than before. At least I hope. It would be really sad if I didn't learn anything.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, thank you very much for sitting down with us. Abram, thank you for joining me for your first dev dive. I had a great time chatting with both of you. Hope people learned about some stuff about Toree Saturn, and I'll be leaving links to this in the description to the different storefronts where you can buy Toree Saturn. If you sat all the way through this and you haven't bought the game yet, it's $5. What's wrong with you? Marcus, thanks very much for sitting down with us.
Thank you very much for having me.